In California, a DUI involving alcohol falls under two vehicle code sections. One is Vehicle Code Section 23152A, which is driving while under the influence of alcohol. The other code section is Vehicle Code Section 23152B, which is driving with a BAC, or blood alcohol content, of 0.08 or higher. If you're arrested for DUI involving alcohol, you'll be charged with both code sections. However, you can only be convicted of one. For instance, if you go to trial and the jury finds you guilty of both code sections, the judge can only sentence you on one. By the same token, if the jury finds you guilty of one charge and not the other, the consequence is the same. The consequences of a DUI conviction can include lots of fines and fees totaling thousands of dollars, driver's license suspension, months of DUI school, probation, and possible jail time. It's important for people to know that if they're arrested for DUI in California, they have 10 days from the date of the arrest to call the DMV Driver Safety Office or have their attorney call the DMV Driver Safety Office to request a DMV hearing. Otherwise, you lose your right to the hearing and your license will automatically be suspended after 30 days. What is a DMV hearing? Basically, the DMV hearing is for the DMV to determine whether or not they're going to administratively suspend your driver's license. It's also really important for people to know that if they're stopped for DUI in California and the officer tells them that they need to take a chemical test, you have to take it. If you refuse to take the test, you'll lose your license for at least a year, if not longer. Now, one thing that's really important to know, there's something called a PAS test, or a preliminary alcohol screening device test. This is a test that the officer administers with a handheld breath test device at the scene. You can refuse this test. This test is only for the officer to form extra probable cause to make the arrest. However, in some counties like Ventura County, the officers use a handheld device for both the required chemical breath test, also the PAS test. You should ask the officer, is this a PAS test or is this the actual chemical breath test that I'm required to take? If he says it's the PAS test, you don't have to take it. If he says, no, this is the actual chemical breath test, you have to take it, take the test. DUI cases can be won at both the DMV hearing and in court. One of the things that we look really closely at when we're looking at a DUI case is, did the officer have probable cause to make the stop? Was the stop justified? In order for the stop to be justified, the officer has to observe some sort of vehicle code violation, like you were speeding, or you went through a red light, or you blew a stop sign, or the officer has to observe something in the way of swerving or pronounced weaving. Okay, if the officer didn't observe a vehicle code violation or didn't observe you weaving or swerving or, of course, getting in an accident, the stop may not be justified. If that's the case, we can file what's called a suppression motion. And this is a motion arguing that the stop wasn't justified, your rights were violated, and the evidence has to be suppressed. If the court grants this motion, your charge will be dismissed. Another thing that we look at is, did the officer observe you continuously for 15 minutes prior to administering the test? This is a requirement under California law. If the officer didn't observe you for 15 minutes prior to administering a breath test, we can call the results of that test into question. Also, any law enforcement agency responsible for a breath test device has to check the machine for accuracy every 10 days or every 150 uses, whichever comes first. If they don't do that, we can also call the results of the test into question. And how do we know if they did this? They have to record it. It has to be in a log, and we subpoena those logs. Now, as far as blood tests go, we can have the court order the law enforcement crime lab to provide our independent crime lab with an untested portion of your blood for us to test independently to see if the BAC that we find matches the BAC that the crime lab found. Also, we check for contamination such as bacteria, which could artificially raise the results of the test. If you or someone you know has been charged with DUI, don't wait until it's too late. Give us a call at the Kann California Defense Group and we can discuss with you the various ways in which we might be able to get your charges reduced or dismissed.